Hi, my name is Devin, and today I'm going to walk you through the kind of basic workflow of the Health Team Lab, how you'll be interacting with participants, and also how you'll be interacting with the file structures that we've set up to record and present data to participants. So I'm going to share my screen with you and show you what it looks like right here is our kind of basic workflow. So the participant is going to come into the lab either through Zoom. They can join with a Zoom link. We may discontinue that in the future as the pandemic hopefully recedes, or they can come into the lab in person. So we'll always have a set of team members at the door waiting to greet people and onboard them as they come in, and also monitoring that Zoom link to see if anybody joins. And as soon as they do join, what we're going to do is go through an onboarding process with them. So all of you should have had the Drive link called participant data shared with you. And if you haven't had that, you should contact whoever's running the Health Team Lab at this time, Dave or myself. And in this Drive folder, you'll be able to see that there's a bunch of subfolders, all with P sub 000 number. These are all participant numbers of previous participants who've come in. There's also outside of those subfolders 4 files. So when somebody comes in and we start onboarding them, the file that we need is called the participant management database right here. I'm just going to click this and open it. So in the participant management database, the top row here is going to prompt you to record a bunch of information from the participant. And you're going to scroll down to find an empty row where we can put in new participant information. And we're just going to use these prompts at the top here to remind us what to fill in. So the participant ID number is already filled in. The first empty one here is participant 53. And we're just going to use the prompts to fill in the information here. So we're going to ask them for their first name. I'll use my own, Devin, last name, Kiernan. Next one is email address. If they are a UC Davis affiliate, we would prefer that they use their UC Davis email address, because that way we can relate their information in the Health Team Lab to other UC Davis programs that they're using through Healthy UC Davis or the ARC or otherwise. If they're not a UC Davis affiliate, or if they prefer not to use their UC Davis email, that's also fine. You can ask them for a UC Davis affiliation. They can be academic or faculty, retiree, staff, undergrad, grad, or unaffiliated, just a community member who heard about us and wanted to come in. Our services are free for everybody, UC Davis or otherwise. I'm a grad student, so I'll choose that. Department, if any, you just put in which department they're in. Date of birth. The format of date of birth here is very important because this cell is going to be called on later by functions to calculate their age and calculate norms for different physical tests that they do. So be very careful when you're entering this, that you do 4-digit year, 2-digit month, 2-digit day. So for me, 1984-10-25. So we're going biggest to smallest, year, month, day. We then have a series of questions which are totally optional for the participants to answer. These are questions about race, racial identity, ethnic identity, sexual identity, any accommodations that they might need. These are totally optional. They don't affect delivery of services to the participants. The only reason that we ask these questions is to ensure that we're reaching the entire UC Davis community and that we're delivering our services equitably. So when you're asking participants for this information, just let them know how we're using it. It's all totally protected. It's all associated with an anonymized participant number. It's not affecting the delivery of services, and it's only being used to ensure that we're delivering our services equitably. So here we have different prompts in the dropdown. If you touch this little arrow in the right here, it gives you different options that you could choose from. So I could choose white. If these options aren't suitable for the participant, they can also choose to write in their own. So if I didn't identify with any of these racial or ethnic categories, I could choose my own. When you're doing this, you'll also have a hard copy that we've laminated that you can show the participant, and they can use a marker, a dry erase marker, to fill it out. So you'll have them doing that on the hard copy, and then you can enter it into here and then just erase the laminated hard copy. You'll notice here we also have gender identity and reference sex. So gender identity, we have a lot of choices here that people can choose from: female, male, genderqueer, agender, transgender, cisgender. And again, you can also enter in a different option if they don't identify with one of those categories. Reference sex, on the other hand, we only have 3 options here: so female, male, or both sexes. And when you're talking to participants about this, you can explain that the science that a lot of our calculations are based on really relies on this gender binary. So when we're calculating their results or comparing their results to norms that have been established in the literature, those norms have been established with this discrete sex binary. So for all their calculations, they can choose whichever one they want to use, female or male, or they can use both sexes, which will give them an average of all people's data. And if they choose not to identify in one of those 3 categories, female, male, or both, it does affect our delivery of services in that we can't do a couple of calculations for them, the VO2 max calculation, and we can't give them a comparison to reference data. We can still give all the other services, but we won't be able to give them those comparisons just based on what's out there in the scientific literature. Okay, the final column here you'll see is PAR-Q plus signed and saved. So what this is asking you to do is to go on to our next stage of interacting with our participant, which is filling out the PAR-Q plus. So the PAR-Q plus is another file that is in our Drive folder that should have been shared with you. The PAR-Q plus, you're going to go into an individual person's subfolder. So now we've just created in the participant management database, me, Devin Kiernan, and it's got an associated participant ID, right? Participant 00053 here. So now in our Drive folder, I'll go find subfolder P00053. I'll go in there, and inside that subfolder for each participant, they're going to have 2 files. The files are a PAR-Q plus and a data collection sheet. The first one we're going to open is the PAR-Q plus. What this is just a general screening to make sure that people are ready to participate in physical activity and know the dangers of participating in physical activity. So it's got a lot of prompts here that are going to walk you through how to do it with a participant. So I'm not going to spend too much time, but basically there's a number of questions that you're going to read to the participant, just asking them if, for example, your doctor has ever said that you have a heart condition, and you're just going to click yes or no here. And these are clickable boxes you can see that we've created in this file. So you're just going to go through and you're going to ask them all of these questions. If they say yes to any of these first 7 questions, then you need to go to follow-up questions down here. So you can see right here, if you answered yes to one or more of the above questions, complete the other questions below. If they answer no to all of these questions, then they're cleared for physical activity. They'll say, I acknowledge that I've read this disclaimer and that I'm ready for physical activity. And then you'll just type your name in here that you've witnessed it. So this is your name as the data collector, and you'll date it. So it's 2022, 3/21 today. And then you're ready to go. But again, if they've said no, or sorry, if they've said yes to one of these questions, they do have a heart condition, they do lose balance, something like that, then you have to do these associated follow-up questions. And again, you'll walk through those and you'll either get cleared or not cleared to do physical activity. Ultimately, this is at the participant's discretion. If they go through this and they say, okay, I understand all these risks and my doctor has cleared me to engage in physical activity, we're just going to take their word for it. We don't need a doctor's note or anything, but we do need them to go through this screening and to provide us with that informed consent that they understand the risks, that we've told them about the risks, and that they're making an informed decision to continue participation. So make sure that's filled out. Hopefully you only have to go through those first 7 questions and you get all no's. Then you can have them acknowledge it and witness and date it yourself. Otherwise, do those follow-up questions. Once that's complete, in our participant management database, you can say that they have signed and saved it. So yes, they have. If they refuse to sign and save it, it affects our delivery of services. We can't do any of the physical testing with them. We can still look at their heart rate and blood pressure. All the other physical assessments we cannot offer because they require physical activity. We can still offer nutrition and we can still offer coaching. So even if they fail the PAR-Q or they refuse to sign the PAR-Q, there are still some services we can offer them, but we cannot do any physical testing with them. If they fail the PAR-Q but tell us that they have physician approval to engage in physical activity, then we say, okay, you can still continue as long as they've signed it and have been made aware of the dangers of participating in physical activity. So those are the 3 options. Yes, they passed, they've signed it. No, they haven't. That's going to limit the services we can do with them. Or no, but they've told us they have physician approval, which means they can do all the services. Okay. So after doing the PAR-Q plus and filling out all of the participant management database, we can then move into data collection. And for data collection, we're going to stay in that participant subfolder. So again, we're in the participant 00053 subfolder that's associated with my name in the participant management database. We're done with this PAR-Q plus file. Now we're going to go to this data collection sheet. So in the data collection sheet, there's a number of sheets down here that you can see. So physical assessment, nutritional assessment, UCD resource use, report and coaching, report sent. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to go through left to right in these different sheets, and it's going to walk you through all the testing stations. So the first thing that we need to do over here is just put in the participant number associated with this person, 0053. You're going to put in who is doing the testing. So that's me, Devin Kiernan is doing the testing. The current date, again, year, month, day. And you'll see as soon as I put in the participant number, it automatically put in the participant's date of birth. So what's happening here is when you put in a participant number, that 5-digit code into this sheet, it's going into the participant management database and it's finding their birthday and importing it over here. So that's why it's so critical that we enter this information into the participant management database and that it's entered in the correct way. Because if it's entered incorrectly, it's going to cause this not to work, and then all of the associated functions won't work. So based on the difference between today's testing date and my birthday in the sheet, the participant management database, it's also automatically calculating my age in years. You'll notice right here, the reference sex is empty, and that's because when I was doing the participant management database and showing the examples, I actually didn't select a reference sex. So I'm going to make sure that I'm doing this properly, select male, and now it should hopefully auto-populate here. Maybe I need to change something. There we go. So now again, it's grabbed my reference sex that I've chosen from the participant management database. So then we're all set. The drop down here is going to ask us whether we're doing our testing remotely via Zoom or in lab. I'm going to choose in lab today. And you can see when I choose in lab, all of these options become available. All these cells become white. If I choose remote, there's some things that we can't do remotely. We can't do all the testing remotely. So it's going to automatically read out all those cells for the test that you can't do. Okay, so then continuing on down here, anywhere there's a white cell is somewhere we need to put in information as we're going through. So the first station that we would go to is heart rate and blood pressure. We would take the person's heart rate. We would take their blood pressure. So I'm just making up data here. But basically, you're taking these measurements and then you're entering them in. Next one we would go on to is anthropometrics, height, leg length, just kind of guessing here. And as you're doing this, it's going to automatically calculate their body mass index right there. The next station that we go on to is aerobic capacity. Again, it's got a little drop down. Any cell with a yellow shading has a drop down that you can choose from specific options. So the specific options that we can choose here are the high step test, the low step test, the 1 mile walk test, the arm ergometer, or no test. If you choose no test, it's going to automatically calculate their VO2 just based on their resting heart rate and their age. The most common one that we're going to use here is a low step. If somebody's very athletic, we might use a high step. There's going to be separate videos walking you through how to do all these tests. But after the high step test, basically you measure the number of heartbeats that they have in 15 seconds. So we'll just say I had, I don't know, 14 heartbeats. Ooh, super fit. Say like 18 heartbeats in 15 seconds. Then it's going to automatically calculate the number of heartbeats in a minute and automatically calculate the VO2. If I chose a different test here, like the 1 mile walk test, you'll see that other cells become white. So it needs more information. So if I have the high step test, it just needs this one bit of information, beats in 15 seconds. If I have the 1 mile walk test, it needs beats in 15 seconds. It also needs my walking time. How long did it take me to walk a mile? In minutes and seconds. So just be cognizant of what the sheet is asking you for. The sheet's really kind of guiding you and helping you along as you're collecting this data to get all the information that you want. Just pay attention to which cells are white and the ones that it needs, the information that it needs. Okay, number 5, flexibility. So we'll say sit and reach 40 centimeters, 180 degree, left and right shoulder flexibility. Balance, it's asking you for time and seconds that they could stand in their static and dynamic, or in their static posture, and the distance that they could reach in their dynamic standing posture. So again, I'm just totally making up data here, just so that I can show you what this looks like at the end. Next station you go on to is strength. How many sit-ups can you do in a minute? Push-ups, we can see a yellow square here, so it's asking again for a drop-down. You can choose either regular or modified. So we'll say regular. We'll say they did 30 push-ups. Next, it's saying the distance from the center of rotation of their knee down to the point of attachment on the leg extension device. I have no idea how long my shank is. So we'll say, I don't know, 40. And then how many newtons could they generate in that test? And just totally making it up. Grip strength. Again, another yellow square asking us to select a dropdown. So here it's saying either grip strength unit A or B. One of them is harder to grip than the other one. So if somebody is a lot stronger, give them grip strength unit B because they'll be able to squeeze harder and generate more force before maxing it out. All right, and that is a complete physical assessment done just like that. The next thing it would ask us to do is go over to the nutritional assessment. That's our next station. So the nutritional assessment, there's much more detailed walkthrough that Linda's put up. So watching that video will give you a really good idea of how to go through this, but I'm just going to show you again how to interact with the sheet here. So basically the first 4 questions are kind of free-form answers. So you can type a bunch of text in here. Have you ever been prescribed a medically necessary diet? If so, can you share the goals? You can just write whatever you want in here. And the same holds true for the next few questions. Then we get to this series of questions, number 5 to number 19. And these questions are just all about the frequency of food consumption. So the options for the participants are every meal, 1 to 2 times a day, 2 to 4 times per week, once per week, 1 to 3 times per month, or rarely. And then it's just how often do you eat fresh, frozen, or canned fruits and vegetables? And they can choose one of those frequency options. So you'll just go through and you'll choose frequencies for all these different foods that they're consuming. Just totally randomly selecting here. We'll see how this random selection does for me at the end when we get my report. These all have the same frequency right up until the end, except for water and alcohol, which have slightly different options. So other than that, all the questions have the same options, and then the last 2, water and alcohol, are slightly different. The last question that you're going to ask them is another free-form answer question, so you can just type text in here. But it's, are you satisfied with your current eating habits? Do you feel that your current pattern sets you up to succeed with your nutrition and health goals? Is there anything that concerns you? So kind of priming them to go into that coaching step. The next sheet that we're going to go to, so again, I just clicked over from nutrition assessment to the next one to its right, is UCD resource use. So a sub goal of our program is to identify which UCD programs are working to improve people's health and which are kind of assess their impact on our community. So we want to know who's using what programs that the school is offering. So this is just a list of the programs offered through Healthy UC Davis. You can ask them if there's any that they're using, and again, just click any that they are. And then there's a kind of a catch-all question at the end. Do you do any other physical activities or mindfulness activities? And just have them kind of describe that. And again, this is just a free-form answer. They can just type in whatever, or you can type in whatever as they talk to you. Okay, so that should take us through all of the data collection. We've collected the physical assessment, the nutritional assessment, and the UCD resource use. Our final stage is to take this data that we've collected and show them their report and interact with them in a coaching style. So we're going to click over from UCD resource use over to report and coaching. And as we've been going through collecting data, a report has been automatically generated for this participant. So as we scroll down here, you're going to see the person's data compared to norms. So this first figure here is just showing kind of the sum of all the physical results that the physical assessments that they did. So it's looking at their cardiorespiratory fitness, their flexibility, their balance, and their strength. This medallion or radar plot style, I'm going to briefly explain to you here. So you'll see right here, it says 0%, 25%, 50%, 75%, 100%. This is comparing that person's results to somebody of their same reference sex and age. A 50% would mean that they're completely average relative to people like that. A score less than 50% means that they've got some opportunity for improvement. They aren't as healthy or as strong as average for that particular category. 25% would mean that only 25% of the population is doing worse than them. 75% would mean that they're kind of in the top quarter of people. So a higher score is better. If you were at 100, that would mean like you're at the top of the population. Your score is better than everybody else's in the population. So you can see kind of the random results that we put in here. Like my cardiorespiratory fitness was really good. I'm close to the 75th percentile. My flexibility was really good. I'm up above the 75th percentile. My balance wasn't good. I'm right around the 25th there. So that's a real opportunity for improvement for me. I didn't have very good balance. And my strength was just about average for the population, right around that 50th percentile. So I'm not going to go through every single graph in this report with you because they all kind of share a similar style. This is the first style. Here's this radar medallion graph, and that's how you read that. So just make sure that you're familiar with that and that you know how to talk to participants about that graph. So this first one, again, showing the sum results of all the physical assessments. Next one, it's going to kind of zoom in a little bit on each area. So the first one is cardiorespiratory. It's going to show you your results for systolic, diastolic, heart rate, aerobic capacity. Now we have a new style of graph here, which is showing the person's resting blood pressure. And it's going to show it over time. So this is my first test. It only shows me this one instance. If I did another test though, it would add that in and give me more dots here. So this blue dot is my systolic blood pressure, the pressure in my blood vessels when my heart's contracting. And this kind of red purple dot is my diastolic blood pressure, the pressure in my blood vessels when my heart's relaxing. If I had another test, we could get another data point over here and see if it was going up or down relative to the last time I came in. So as somebody comes in over time, we'll be able to chart their progress. The other things that are displayed on these graphs, we have this dashed blue line here. So that's the target or recommended healthy value for a particular metric. So not all metrics have this. I think that blood pressure is actually one of the only ones that has like a target healthy recommendation, and that's 120/80. So these dashed lines are just drawn through those two values. The gray that we're seeing here is a comparison again to normative data. So for my reference sex and my age, what are the normal values for other people? So the middle line here would be average for people of my age and sex. And then the shaded area around there is standard deviation. So one standard deviation up and one standard deviation down. So mean plus or minus one standard deviation. That means that about 67% of the population falls in this gray area. And again, I won't go through every single graph with you, but I just wanted to show you how to read that type of graph. So again, if we go down to resting heart rate, we see the same kind of format. We have this blue dot showing my data at this test point, and then this gray shaded area showing the people of my reference sex and age. You'll see that there's no dashed blue line here because there's no specific recommendation about what's a healthy value. And again, we go through aerobic capacity here. You can see that my aerobic capacity that we put in there is way above this gray area. So that means that I would be like an outlier relative to people of my sex and age. So I'm doing really well in this category. At the end of a section, so this was our section on cardiorespiratory health, it'll have some information about how you could improve this. So if instead of being way up, I was way down here, we might want to spend some time with the participant during our coaching session going through this section on how to improve cardiorespiratory health. Next, it'll go through the next section, which is balance and flexibility. Same kind of medallion graph showing the individual test results: sit and reach, shoulder, balance, stand, Y balance. And then the same kind of graphs that we saw above, where it's showing your individual data point at each test and the population norms. Again, at the end of that section, thought for improving flexibility. You'll also notice that there are descriptions of each graph. So if you forget, you can kind of lean on those as a crutch, and those are also there to help the participants understand this when we send it to them. And there's also a description of the test and why we do it so that the participants can understand that. Y balance, tips on improving balance. You'll also notice that in each section where there's tips, there's also some suggestions about healthy UC Davis activities that people can do to improve. Then we go into strength, a summary of sit-up, push-up, leg extension, leg flexion, and grip strength, and then each test individually plotted. For quadriceps and hamstring strength, you'll see that there's lefts and rights now. So I think that the left is in blue and right is in that kind of red purple color. There's a new kind of graph in here that you haven't seen before. This is showing the ratio of quadriceps to hamstring strength. So if your quadriceps are much stronger or much weaker than your hamstrings, that can predispose you to injury. So there's kind of an envelope that you want your quadriceps hamstrings ratio to be in, which is depicted by these two horizontal lines in black here. So I've got my left quadriceps hamstrings ratio in blue and my right in purple here, and both of them are falling in that window. That's good. If I was really far outside of this window, either my quadriceps were way stronger than my hamstrings, being a really big positive number, or my quadriceps were way weaker, being down here, that could predispose me to injury. So that's how we interpret that graph. Grip strength, again, same thing that we've seen before. And then tips on improving strength and programs that you could do to improve strength. That's a summary of all of our physical results. And that brings us to the physical plan of action. So in a separate video, Linda Adams, our nutritionist, goes through how to do the plan of action, and she shows using these same prompts, how you would do that specifically for nutrition. It's the same idea for the physical plan of action. Basically, we've got these free form prompts here where it's going to say, did you have a previous plan? Did it work? What do you need to try next? Can you keep this up? What will I do? When will I do it? What's the first step? What are potential roadblocks? How can I handle these roadblocks? How can it make my success more likely? What support can I get? When will I start? So this is you acting as a coach with them, having just gone through the report, shown them the results, identified their strengths and their opportunities for improvement, and now trying to brainstorm with them and elicit from them a plan that they can put into action and can feel confident about succeeding with. After that, we get down here to the nutrition assessment. This graph is showing you 3 bars. The blue means that you met nutritional recommendations. The yellow means that you were close to the recommendations, but there's opportunity for improvement. And the red means that you did not meet recommendations. And this is just showing you the percentage of the nutritional criteria where all 3 of those are true. So you want as much blue as you can get here, basically, the biggest blue graph. It's then going to take you through each of the individual categories that you asked the participant about. And again, it's using that same color coding to tell you how well they did. So for fruits and vegetables here, I did not meet my recommendation. I reported that I ate 2 to 4 per week. I'm supposed to have 5 or more per day. So right away, the color coding is going to give the participant a lot of information, with blue being the best, yellow being intermediate, and red being you did not meet that recommendation. And then down here, there's some information that the participant can read about, or you can use kind of as a crutch to help you give them information and tell them why it's important. So this has all been written by Linda Adams, our nutritionist, to say why why these criteria have been established and what's important about these foods, steps that you can take to improve. So just go through this with them, showing them each of these categories. And then at the end, right here, we have other nutritional considerations. This is going to be auto-filled right here from when we put it in, when we were doing the nutritional assessment. So medically necessary diet has been auto-populated from when we collected that data. So these should be filled already when you get here. Next, it's going to take you to the nutritional plan of action. It's exactly the same format as the physical plan of action. And again, a detailed example video of Linda doing this is available online. So you'll go through that with them to develop their plan of action. And that's it. That's the report. So you'll physically go through that with them in the lab. And that's your opportunity to coach them. And then when they leave the lab, you'll also email them a copy of this. And that's it. If they come in again and it's their second session, you'll see up here, if we go all the way back to physical assessment, right up here it says visit 1, visit 2, visit 3. So on subsequent visits, you'll fill out these columns to the right here, and the report's going to get updated with their new information. And again, same in the nutrition assessment here and the UCD resource use. Each of these columns is a subsequent visit. So as soon as the person comes in that onboarding stage, if they've been in before, all the participant management database stuff should be filled out, and you can skip that PARQ Plus and jump straight into the data collection with them, filling out a new column. I think that about covers it for us. If you have any questions at all, feel free to email me or Dave or whoever else is in charge of the HTL at this time. And yeah, I think that's about it. Thanks.